Interestingly, in yoga philosophy, as you go deeper, the heart and mind are really just two ends of the same consciousness. They're or polarities of the same energy. We have a mental aspect of consciousness, and then there's the heart. What I would say is more like the feminine in a way, and just the pure essence, love. So you have in yoga gyan, wisdom, the aspect of enlightened mind, and prema, love, divine love, which is the awakened heart, and really the bridge of those two.
Hello and welcome to Curious Ones podcast by Yandara. I'm Yael Ginzburg, the host of the podcast, a yoga and meditation teacher and philosophy lover. Each week you will hear eye-opening interviews with the different teachers of the Yandara Yoga Institute located in beautiful Baja, Mexico, along with other teachers that pass through here. This life-changing knowledge shared through authentic, heartfelt communication will help you live a happier, more fulfilled, and connected life. Let's dive in. This is Saul David Raye with me. I'm so excited to have Saul here on the podcast. Saul is a teacher, healer, musician, and activist. He has been practicing and teaching for over 25 years and is known for his unique style of heart-centered healing yoga, breathwork, sacred music, and timeless wisdom. He has taught and chanted at many yoga centers and festivals and continues to share his work worldwide. His mantra music album, 10,000 Suns Music for Healing, Peace, and Awakening, reached number 3 on the iTunes World Music Charts. So welcome to the podcast, Saul.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. What a beautiful location also.
Yes. We have the view of the ocean.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's start kind of with your background and the way that you arrived to this spiritual world, because I kind of saw there's an interesting story there.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone has an interesting story probably, but well, how far back do you want to go?
How far as you feel.
Okay. Well, I think the first time in my life where I really became aware of, like I grew up in England, and when I was a little kid, I have a lot of remembrances. I used to play in the forest, and it might sound a little strange, but I definitely felt like I had contact with beings that were there, and it was maybe the imagination, who knows what it is. But there was, and I forgot about it for a long time, I think. And then when I started doing shamanic work, I started remembering these experiences that I had when I was very young. I don't know what to make of them really, but it's almost like there was a presence or an energy that I feel we all are connected to in nature. And that was, those experiences are still with me. And then I came to America when I was about 7. I'll just kind of give you the highlights. Actually, I was 8. And I was in New Orleans, and I decided I wanted to go to church, but my parents didn't want to go. So they checked it out, found some churches that were safe and arranged it, and I got to go. And I was very curious about God. And I found some churches were more celebratory than others, but it was, it was a good experience. And then had, after that, a pretty normal upbringing in California until I was about maybe 15 or 16. And into our living room, one day I came home and there was a being standing there with a shaved head and big eyes and big ears, and this very loving being who turned out to be a Buddhist monk.
In your house?
Yeah, well, he is. So my father had been in Sri Lanka some years before, kind of midlife trip to the monastery, and he had befriended this American Buddhist monk named Yogavachara Rahula, who's still here. He was my first, still meeting with us on the earth plane. And it's hard to explain, but it was like I felt something from him that wasn't anywhere else. Really, I would say now presence and compassion. He was very present. And so he began to teach me little things. I was always more interested in spending time with him when I could, so I started to learn some basic meditation and Dharma teachings. And then when I was 23, I'd been in the music business and kind of burned out quickly. It was very, not a healthy lifestyle, really, And I realized one day if I kept going, some of my mentors in that, and not a judgment on them, but I realized that life would just go by. Mm. And I thought, So I ended up, and for other reasons too, we closed the studio. And I went to a Buddhist monastery for about really 2 different times within a period for about a year, maybe a little more. And that was a time of really diving more deeply into yoga, more very classical Indian style hatha yoga, Buddhist meditation, living in the forest.
Mm-hmm. Where were these monasteries?
This was in just outside of Washington, D.C. in West Virginia. It's called Highview, that's the name. Mm-hmm. I haven't said that for a long time. Highview, West Virginia. And it's still there today. It's called Bhavana Society. I haven't been there in a long time, but it's a beautiful Buddhist community, and they offer meditation retreats. And Rahula is very unique because he's also a yogic adept. He was very much a yogi. He combined the 2 paths in a way that is pretty unique, because most Buddhist monks are not doing, at least Theravadan tradition, not doing yoga. Mm-hmm. But he's an amazing person, being. And then I kind of went back to the music business, and I got this strange tropical infection while I was on a music tour, and I got an abscess to my brain, and I had brain surgery. I mean, it wasn't really brain surgery, it was more they had to open the head to take out this abscess, but I was paralyzed on one side for a little while. And through that, I started having these really kind of, profound spiritual experiences. I don't really still know what to make of them, but I feel like there was a presence that came in. I got to understand how fragile things are. But that experience redirected my life completely away from the music business, at least for then. Yeah. And I went to India. I went to Thailand first, spent time studying there. Thailand, I went to India. And I was gone almost about 2 years that time. And I don't know, I didn't really think about teaching as a career. It wasn't a thought I had, like, and there were no really any teacher trainings back in those days. This was like, the early 90s, early 90s, 1990s. And it's funny because before I left on that trip, I had a spiritual mentor, a wonderful lady who used to help me process things, and she's did a lot of energy work and like that. And she said, this trip is going to change your life and take you in a different direction. Mm-hmm. I didn't think too much about it. I was young. But it really did. It was, so I just came back, and yoga was starting to happen in America, so I started doing that, teaching, because it was right there, available. I enjoyed it. It was great. And then the music, I had left. That's been a slower journey back into that. But when I went to India and through the Indian devotional music, I realized what was missing for me, which was this sense of the divine. And that touched my heart in a way. And I still had no intention of really going back into that world, but just slowly being around the chanting, then coming back to the West, and also the kirtan scene was starting to happen, and in LA. So I worked with a dear friend of mine, Dave Stringer, who's a wonderful kirtan leader, musician. And we started experimenting, with the kirtan and yoga together in classes. I mean, now it's fairly common. Back then, at least in LA, there wasn't really happening much. And so it was a great way to experiment. And over the years, through my own chanting practice, it drew me back into music. And then all of a sudden, playing festivals as well,
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, after many years of that, making an album, which took over 2 years, but it was a lot of fun. Got to travel around and record much like this setup, recording friends in different places. So I got a lot of amazing musicians on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, there was no intention. I mean, like any art, you're not really intending to make money or, it's really, you're just doing it for the love of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a great process to do that. It was very healing. And that's why I gave it the title I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it did pretty well. I mean, there wasn't much promotion behind it because that's like a whole nother thing, but it did really well for the the time that we had. And and I still like it. I don't listen to it much, but when I hear it, I like the music. It really, I feel it here.
That's beautiful. I think that makes sense when you speak about making it not for any external reason, not for getting fame or any feedback about it, but just because it was an artistic need that came from from inside and needed to be born into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's art, really. It's like, art is the bridge between the soul and spirit and this world, and to create meaning and beauty. And, and I think we all do that in our own way, and we all have an artist in us.
Yeah.
I just, I'd been singing these songs for so long as kirtans and working with different musicians. So the album going into that phase was really interesting, taking 45-minute kirtans and then making them into song form. And but I was very smart. I worked with great musicians, including one of my best friends, Jim Beckwith, an amazing musician. And he and I co-produced it. And then at the end, when we got too spread out, my friend Dave Stringer, we brought him on board and were able to really pull it in. And
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I love how you kind of went through your own process with it, starting off in music when you were in your 20s, and then going off and veering into a different direction, but then coming back to it with intention and with authenticity and integrity.
Thank you. I try. It's kind of like a full circle. And the next album, I think it's coming soon. Since the pandemic, I just started writing a lot of songs more in English. Some have some Sanskrit or, other prayers or something in them. But there were just certain things I wanted to say and share that were not, necessarily in a mantra form or, so that one, so it's like, it just continues,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think our artistic expression is also I think our occupation is our artistic expression, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And evolving with that is like kind of how the meaning of life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like we imagine this world without art, without music, without yoga, without beauty. I mean, if it was just about the basic mechanics and making money and, and so art, also plays such an important role, I think, in, how do I say it? It's like in the healing process, because it's art that can really bring us back at a soul level, at a deeper level, to the beauty of life, to the meaning of life, when we lose our way. And in this time where we're, heading perilously into, we're at a very interesting time because our technology is so great. Our consciousness is not quite evolved. And so the way that we're using a lot of the technologies is still for greed and profit and destruction of things. Not only, of course, thank goodness, but art and people being able to express that and move others and move the world. And so it becomes its own, I hate to use the word narrative, but let's say an alternate story and expression to express ourselves and our healing and like that. I mean, for me, I'm just trying to share what I'm feeling like as deep as I can go, and then try to put that into words and rhythm and music, or even into the yoga class. I mean, to me, yoga is the same. It's just like an expression of consciousness, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I found a really beautiful quote of yours that reminds me of what we're speaking of. So I'll read it and then we can just discuss it. You said, yoga is the technology of awakening the heart.
Did I say that?
You did.
Sounds like something I probably said somewhere.
Yeah. Would you expand on that?
Sure. Yoga touches every part of our being, right? I mean, there's asana for the body, there's mantras for the mind, there's meditation. But ultimately, the heart is such an interesting energetic space within human beings, and you can find that through many traditions, not just through the yoga tradition. But there's the idea that within the heart consciousness is the essence. And that, yoga ultimately is an ancient technology. It really is. It's these, practices and techniques that were kind of come out of this process of awakening consciousness. And ultimately that's to awaken the heart. And, we could say the mind too, but so interestingly in yoga philosophy, as you go deeper, the heart and mind are really just two ends of the same consciousness. They're or polarities of the same energy. We have a mental aspect of consciousness, and then there's the heart. I would say is more like the feminine in a way. And just the pure essence, love. So you have in yoga, gyan, wisdom, the aspect of enlightened mind, and prema, love, divine love, which is the awakened heart, and really the bridge of those two. So yeah. And people all over the world right now are doing yoga, different religions, different cultures. It's accessible because that's part of its journey also. And that's a beautiful thing, that someone can go in, not feel threatened or worried somehow, and they can do the yoga. And the technology is that we start to breathe and move and open our bodies, our hearts, and we connect into that deeper place in us. So whether you're like you're Jewish, you're Christian, Hindu, Muslim, ultimately you can do yoga because it's not sectarian in any way, right? It's just about getting in touch with your essence, whatever that may be.
What you just said feels so true just by how it resonates in my body, because you said it as in two sides of the same thing, right? The mind and the heart, the masculine and the feminine. And we know that life is really about balance, right? We're finding the balance between these polarities. And it makes so much sense to me what you said, that it's really not about denying the mind and trying to hide from it and running from the thoughts and running from everything that's going on there, and just dwelling in the heart space, because the mind is part of our existence, right? It's part of nature.
Yes, right.
So thinking about
Definitely.
it as finding the balance between them makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. And in, yogic, I would say, I hesitate to use the word psychology, but in yogic philosophy, the mind has different aspects. So there's higher mind, there's consciousness, there's our discerning mind, the intellectual mind, but there's also our kind of reactive mind that we get into negative patterns in and become, repeat those loops. But mind is an aspect of our being. Something that may be helpful for people is there are 5 main dimensions in yoga. I mean, depending on how you look at it, there could be more or less, but one map that's used are the koshas. So the physical layer of material energy is one layer. So you have body density, and you have pranic layer, which is kind of your breath and the way that the vayu, the air, prana moves through the body. You have a mental, emotional body. You have a consciousness or intellectual body. And then a bliss body, which is nice to know you have one.
Yeah.
An ecstatic aspect of our being. And then there's the kind of the it's like Russian dolls, like they're just layers. So like imagine 5 layers, and then in the center is this pure essence, or Atma, which is like they consider like divine spark. We're all a little spark of God. And every part of our energy is actually important because part of our expression. The heart has special significance, though, as the place of essence. In many cultures, like your heart, has your heart in it. And then mind, because heart, your feeling and your, essence, but also your mind is affected by your heart, and your heart affected by your mind, right? So it's like, I like to think of it like a figure 8. They're 2 parts of the same energy. And yes, it's not just about only being in the heart. I don't want to be in my mind, We have to develop clear thinking. We have to be able to vision things and think clearly. And I've been more heart-oriented probably most of my life. So for me, it's also, working with the mind in a more linear way. And I'm not so great at linear. I'm better at the circle. So my work is often, developing linear thought or,
So would you say your work is developing the sides that are not your natural skills? Sure. Or would you say that, I just think that it's really important to work with other people. So to focus on your strength and bring that into the world, but then know when to ask for help when there's something that's not your strong side.
Sure. Yeah, all of that, I think. It's growth is learning what we don't know or stretching into the areas that are not developed. So we can always learn and grow and evolve. And I think evolutionarily that's very important. And also understanding that we don't do everything well, or meaning some people are, of course, very good at many things, but it's to know your strengths also and to find a way to, bring forth what you enjoy or what you're good at in a way, especially in communities. Yeah, so I think that's all important. And, we're all here to learn and grow together. And, there are a lot of contributions. That's a very important thing, I think, also in teaching children and children learning is the uniqueness that we all have. We're not all the same. So when we create a standard that everyone has to be the same way, and when they don't fit into that there's something wrong or something, not right. And certain cultures have understood that each child is unique, each being is unique, and you find ways to bring out their natural learning. And this is the curious ones, right? Yep. So you probably know, but the Latin educare, I don't know if I pronounced that right, I think so, but educare for education is to draw out that curiosity. And my daughter went to a school for a little while that was child-directed, very interesting, and it was amazing. The kids were so excited because they got to choose within certain parameters what they learned.
Oh, wow.
And so it's really an amazing thing. We're naturally curious, aren't we? And that's a very good thing to, because then you want to learn more about it and grow and expand. And
yeah. We're curious when we have the opportunity to be curious, not when we're, because I feel like a lot of the systems, as you said, make us wrong if we're not good at what we're supposed to be good at, or if we're not the same as the other people. And that kind of takes out the will and the excitement of learning, because you kind of like, it brings you down, right? You feel like something is wrong with you when you're just different.
Sure. Yes, the value standards of the world. Quite obviously, I think, we look out at a lot of modern culture, and it's not to take anything away from what's good, but we're clearly out of balance, which is why things like yoga and healing traditions are so relevant in modern time and culture. These are ancient practices in many cases, or at least coming from ancient traditions. And they're like a lifeline. I mean, here at Yandara, right, people are coming from all over the world to learn yoga, to be in nature, to reconnect to something. Mm-hmm. And the world has valued certain things that are one aspect of life. And we've made a big mess.
Yeah.
So as we reconnect more with those deeper things that also are essential in life, then it helps us as human beings to make different choices, value things differently, where we even put our money or what we, Mm-hmm. So, yes, we have a long way to go.
Hey, I'm quickly interrupting the episode to extend an invitation. If you are interested in deepening into any of the subjects we talk about on the podcast, we offer many different experiences on our beautiful grounds here in Baja, Mexico. From 9-day modules such as sound healing and yoga nidra to breath and meditation, as well as 200 or 300-hour yoga teacher trainings and many different shorter retreats. Check out our website, yandara.com, to see all the information about the different experiences. Let's get back to the episode. As we're talking now, I don't know when this episode will come out, but I'm actually feeling very heavy right now. There has been a lot of terror in Israel.
Oh.
And of course, there's wars going on in many countries in the world, not only in Ukraine that everybody's talking about now.
Of course.
It just feels like, as you said, so many things are going wrong and humanity is really focusing on just the wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but in psychology and in neuroscience, like negative programming is very powerful. The media is, obviously in one way, it's good to know what's going on around the world, but the focus on, every day, there are millions of amazing things that are happening. And then there are these certain things that are played over and over again. And, I'm not a big fan of, I'm going to say, mainstream media as in the sense that it has too many conflicts of interest. It doesn't mean it's not telling the truth all the time. It's my own opinion. But it's clearly focused on a certain way of programming and putting that much fear constantly. Mm-hmm. But then you have these real things that are happening.
Right.
So how do we, so what to do, right? As a person, I think you can only absorb, I try to stay current with what's happening. But there's a point where it feels like there's enough negativity and stress, and then I have to process it somehow. Mm-hmm. And what I've found for myself is there's a balance in how to. So, right, Gandhi said, I forget what Gandhi said, but there's that. Be the change. Thank you. I was thinking of another shamanic term, but yes, be the change that you wish to see in the world. To become, when you see the pain and suffering, to become the healing, or some way to add to what is good and to increase that. And so we can each do that in our own way, and we can still be mindful of those things. We live in difficult times. We live where reality. There are really powerful lessons that we have to learn as a human. We've been talking about this a lot actually this week on the retreat, and we can evolve beyond war and violence. That's part of I really believe that's part of our future and destiny as a species, but we're not there yet. Entertainment, that so much violence. For myself, I don't like to watch any of those things because I don't want that in my field. I want to try to do the practices I'm doing. We all have to heal our own life. We have relationships. We have pieces of the hoop of the web that we can heal. And I think it's also okay to feel heavy sometimes, because as a feeling person, as somebody who cares about others, cares about the planet, you see what's happening sometimes. What I do is I try to write a song. I'll share one with you at the end, if you like. That came out of a prayer.
Beautiful.
And there's just ways we do what we can do. Mm-hmm. I think the good people of the world, which is in every country, every race, every religion, just the good hearts of the people want peace.
Yeah.
The game being played at higher levels, I won't go into all of that, but
Yeah.
there's obviously
Interest.
there's interests that are being served. There are those that benefit from war financially. There are games being played, and John Lennon said, "Peace is here if you want it." We have to want it as much as we want our entertainment, as much as we want to go for a drink or have a nice meal or whatever. And I think that's coming. There are more and more. It's like the peace tribe, the shalom, salam, amen, shanti, like all over the world. People are doing these incredible gatherings, right? Here at Yandara and everywhere. I just got chills. And it's like, we just have to, in a way, figure out how to take it to the next step, to exercise the power that the people have for peace.
Yeah.
And I think even now with so much division in the COVID era, but all the other accompanying things in politics and this and that, the majority of people want to respect each other. They want to get along. They don't want to focus on division.
Definitely.
And I really think that we keep finding ways to do that in the global brain, the neural pathways and heart pathways, to keep coming together in a healing way, listen to each other, even when we're in conflict.
Yeah.
And find the healing, because we can't wait for the politicians to do it. Maybe there's a few that are trying, or corporations, whatever. We have to take the lead, be the change that we wish to see, and just live it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the polarity here, because on one hand, I agree with you that I don't enjoy watching the news. I try to stay informed, but I don't watch it regularly. And then on the other hand, I'm thinking, but these crazy things are happening. We need to talk about, like, nobody's talking about what's happening in Syria anymore.
Yes.
And it's still at war, like, I don't know, so many years. Yeah. And nobody's talking about it. And I feel like more needs to be done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that there, as you say, I mean, Yemen, Syria, Somalia. I mean, the U.S. has no room to be, the U.S. has plenty, a lot of governments do, but it's like, yes, there are these conflicts all over the world that are justified in some way or another, that who really loses? The people on the ground.
Exactly.
And, so yes, I agree with you. My heart hurts so much from, I'm sure probably everybody listening to this, like when we really drop into that feeling level, what's happening in Israel, what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in, all the places, the people who are just trying to live their lives caught up in these conflicts. And I believe more, maybe more the cause I believe in the most, two things. One is peace, and the other is the return to Mother Earth and sense of consciousness and the feminine, the integration of the feminine and masculine. There's so much intelligence and loving wisdom in nature, and instead of being at war with nature, extracting profit, it's about learning how to work with nature, which all of our sacred traditions around the earth understood. How to be in attunement with the living Gaia, the planet.
Yeah, take only as much as can be replenished. And
yes, exactly. Greed, so I have a little saying, greed is the rot at the root of the tree of life. It's one of the biggest distortions, because the moment we're in greed, we take more than we need. And remember, another thing Gandhi said is, there's enough for everyone's need, but not everyone's greed.
Yes.
And I think most people do want to share, right?
Right.
Beautiful thing.
I think more people should share. We tell our kids all the time, share with your friends, and then the grown-ups don't do it themselves.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah.
I don't mean to make this a political conversation, of course.
Sure.
I brought this up in connection to what you said. Our the lower consciousness of mind bringing about these things, the greed and the separation of ego. And maybe if we can talk a little bit about how we make this practical in terms of what people can actually do in their day-to-day life, because there's these big things that are happening in the world, but there's also the small conflicts, like somebody coming to you, like arguments, or people just being, I don't know if mean is the word, but how do you in your life bring light to those situations?
Well, it's an ongoing process, right? Because that's part of the journey, is bumping up against things, and sometimes we don't always have the chance to explain or talk to someone. So there's the reactivity that comes in, and we're all, I've spent many years doing healing work. I think we all have pain. Everyone has pain inside them somewhere on their journey, but that's also part of this life, is experiencing pain. And healing. So to answer your question, like, what can we do? Well, one is that you find some way of repairing, some way of working on yourself to be a better human being. It might be through Kabbalah, it might be through yoga. You find your path, your heart path. What speaks to your heart makes you feel alive, and you follow it. And then realizing that, and then in those traditions there are tools. Those tools we can start to use. At some moment we have to start taking responsibility. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean, that even you can fix everything. I don't know. I haven't learned to fix everything yet. But what we can do is we can keep trying, and we can keep working on ourselves. And when there is conflict, find a way to approach the other person or the situation in a way that we can bring healing. And vulnerability, honoring our part in things,
honoring the other parts, and finding ways to communicate. And there's a lot of beautiful healing happening on the planet as well. I mean, I wish they would put that on the news. That's true.
Because there are so many incredible. I mean, the average person, you just see some amazing, tradition or some healing work or people's experiences where they're really reconnecting their beingness, and it would inspire so many people. And more people are finding the path. More and more media is getting out there, wonderful teachers and teachings, and we'll get there. We're gonna get there.
What gives me hope is how I feel about everything that is happening, is that it's kind of like explosion that needs to happen so that things calm down after it, like kind of like a volcano or something.
Yeah. I mean, the calm, that's the other way around. I was going to say the calm before the storm.
After the storm.
Yeah. So like things have to reach a point to wake people up, like enough intensity, enough events.
Yeah. We see that in our lives, right? Like usually the best healing comes after great suffering.
You reach the blow up point.
Yeah. Definitely.
Or hit the bottom.
Yeah. In order to grow.
Yeah.
So what has been one lesson, one wound that has kept coming up for you, and you're like, oh, I thought I learned that already, but here it is again.
Well, personal relationships are always that. I think those are the most intimate mirrors that we have. And so, learning how to grow and work within that. For me, honestly, probably the biggest challenge has been being on the road, being a yogi, and trying to have family life. I have 3 amazing kids who I love more than anything in the universe. And, to keep that relationship has been hard. So that's really my work. And, of course, there are many ways to offer support, so that's happening. But yeah, I miss my kids a lot. Like, I don't get to spend the time with them that I would like. When they were younger, it was easier because there's not all I could take them with me, and they travel with me a lot. They were around programs. But Yeah, I don't, it's kind of as I've gotten older, I've just learned to let go of a lot of things. But I'm always open to the opportunity to speak with someone, or, if there's some healing to be done, and that's a lot of what this work is for me. It's just, we kind of go into that vulnerable space and we relate, and we're the macrocosm is the microcosm as well, where we feel disconnected in ourselves, where there's imbalance. We can heal, we can work with that, and in some way, I do believe that ripples out. And I think probably there are some enlightened beings, like really, like I do believe that. Mm-hmm. And I think that mostly the human condition is we're here to work through things. We're here to learn. It's like I call this the Earth School. Yeah. So we're in the Earth School to learn many lessons. There are a lot of different lessons. I've seen very spiritual people who are hopeless, and a lot of other things, like maybe family life or running a business or with money, like they just don't do that. And then other people who are great at practical things, who are terrified of meditation or something, so we have different things to learn in this life. To me, the spiritual is valuable, but so is the material. So our families, relationships, friendships, work, your work in the world, taking care of yourself, not just giving all the time. Because, if the well runs dry, there's nothing left. So there's so many things we get to learn in the Earth School.
Yeah.
We're just getting started, I think.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Beautiful. What has been an experience or a learning that you had that completely changed your perspective on life?
Well, there's been a lot of those, I think, probably. But there's one... So a couple of things come up stronger than others. There's in the yoga tradition, there's a word in Sanskrit, ritam, and that word and that philosophical concept totally put so many things together for me in an internal way that it's changed my experience of time and space. So ritam is where we get the English word rhythm, ritmo in Spanish. Ritam would be like the cosmic rhythm, the pulse of evolution of the universe, kind of breathing in and out, and like the sacred dance of polarities in a way.
Yeah, the cycles.
Evolving order, right. So ritam is that there's a movement of the whole, breathing, like the universe is breathing in and breathing out. And when that wave hits the planet Earth, it becomes ritus, which are the seasons of life. So the seasons, right, you have the 4 main seasons. And we think, oh, well, big deal, but how many winters do you have in your life? How many falls, summers, springs? So if you look, in your ancestral lines, you'll see sacred ceremonies and festivals and ways that they always honored the flow of life, the seasons, because these are important points. And that also ties into the moon cycle, to the equinox solstice cycle, to the human breath rhythm. So there's this kind of one, like a Sufi that I was with once said, there's one rhythm dancing through all of us.
Beautiful.
Love that.
Yeah.
And so that's why music is such an important thing for me, and chanting and breathing, and then being in natural places where you really start to feel the rhythm, the pulse.
The rhythm, yeah.
And we come back to that in ourselves. So that's one. And I always try to, share that in a retreat. And then we have our each of us natural connection to the elements.
Yeah. You can't look at the ocean and not feel the rhythm.
Right.
The movement
exactly.
in and out. There's just this
if you're present
movement.
If you're present, yeah. And of course, in a place like this, you are, yeah. But yeah, exactly. The power, nature is our teacher. It's our home. It's our mother.
Yeah.
Mother Nature, right? And every day she gives enough food for over 7 billion beings, enough shelter, enough beauty. We just have to learn to share.
Yeah.
And the other teaching it would be is the heart, the human heart. So there are a lot of teachings around that. Primarily for me, bhakti yoga, the cultivation of the heart energy. But you'll find this in traditions all over the world. And the idea that the heart is really like it's where all the polarities resolve and come into like left and right, male, female, above, below.
Yeah.
The heart field, and then the human heart is generating electromagnetic fields that are electrically like 10 times stronger than any other part of us, but magnetically over 5,000.
Wow.
So collectively, the human heart generates, true to say, the human heart generates electromagnetic fields that are thousands of times stronger than any other part of us.
Wow.
We also now know that, and all this could change, it can be updated, but I think currently it's about 10 times as much information goes from the heart to the brain as the other way around.
Oh, wow.
So we used to think,
Right. Yeah, it comes from the head to the heart.
yes.
Uh-huh.
I think the human heart is many energetic fields, can close, can open, right? But it's a dimension of being that is so powerful. I recently just saw somebody did like photos of like just bringing someone in, take a photo, and then they say to them, "You're beautiful."
Okay, you
And
smile.
people of all races, colors, sizes, shapes, and everyone completely just lights up because beauty is our essence.
Yeah.
It's in the heart, whether we're black, white, yellow, brown, red, blue, green, Mars, Earth, Venus, wherever we come from. Beauty is the essence of creation.
Yeah, I heard someone say it really beautifully that we experience love through beauty.
Wow, that's true love. Yeah, I love that. That's great. I like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And the heart also has a rhythm.
It does.
Yeah.
Shiva's drum. Tuck, 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 tuck. Another little drum in the Shiva statue. There's a little drum. That's the rhythm. That's the teaching of rhythm. But it's also in the human heartbeat, which is that. Tuck, tuck, tuck,
Right.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and it also connects for me with what we were saying about this rhythm, the cycles of life, right?
All rhythms are connected. Some are more direct, some maybe not so much, but they're all connected. And there's one big rhythm, one symphony,
So yoga, meditation, that's the way to connect with this rhythm.
Yeah, there are many ways. I mean, Qigong, Tai Chi, music, art. The emphasis on some kind of physical movement practice is really good. Like whatever you do that makes you feel alive,
Yeah.
I think the universe, like this may sound strange from a yogi, but I think the universe doesn't really care what so much we do. It's more the feeling, the energetic,
The intention.
Yeah, and how just, like you could do yoga and be miserable, judgmental of others in the room, you know what I mean? Or and then you could go for a run and just be like beaming love and happiness to everyone you pass by.
Yeah.
So I think the universe responds more to the energetics of what we do. But within yoga and practices like yoga, you have the cultivation of the breath energy, prana, which is really, that's the heart of it all, right? Because everything is prana. So pranayama, the extension of the life force.
Yeah.
Cultivation of the body, keeping the nerves healthy, the body, the muscles, right? And so there's something about those type of systems that are very healing. And then a way to feed your art, whatever, your beauty,
I love that. More art. Definitely.
I have a friend who's an accountant and, spent his whole, life doing that. And he found his art in photography and going to places like Death Valley or, really kind of beautiful natural places and becoming one with the, present with the experience, the moment, capturing beauty, right?
Definitely. I also heard somebody very interestingly speak about the fact that everybody can be an artist. Even being an accountant, you can create art while being an accountant.
Yes.
Yeah.
No offense to accountants.
Create art, I mean, as an accountant, like in the way that you do
Oh,
the
yeah, the way you do.
numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We can be creative.
Yeah, in any field.
It's
that
called
we're in.
creative accounting.
Exactly. I don't know. I don't know if that would be recommended,
Right. Perhaps not.
but I know what you mean. So where would you say that you are now in your life rhythm and how you see your future, your near future?
I have no idea. I really don't. I'm a very intuitive person, and I do try to, like, most of my life I've found that I do it even when I'm not trying to do it. Like, it's just like being guided. And so it's very impractical, actually, at sometimes, especially with the world and having to make plans.
Yeah.
So it's not always easy in areas of life, but I really do feel like I have to surrender more to spirit and what's coming through. And life goes better that way. The more that I'm trying to direct everything, not as much fun. Just letting the energy flow, letting spirit guide and lead. And but I definitely am feeling a strong call with music right now. Like, there's that, sharing through the musical frequencies. I love being with others in community consciousness and creating and supporting people and breathing and opening themselves. I also like time in solitude. It's very important for me. Quiet time in nature. I don't really know. I usually when people ask me that question, I say I'm just following the river. That's
I love that.
yeah. So I don't know where it'll take me.
Wonderful. So let's move on to the closing curiosity question.
Okay.
Even though I feel like I can speak with you for a long time more.
Sure.
What is something that you've changed your mind about?
Vegetarianism.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think everyone has to be a vegetarian in order to be a loving, peaceful being. I know a lot of people may freak out when they hear that, but that's just my honest answer. I mean, there's a lot of things I could say. I think what is essential is being conscious and in relationship with the planet. Yeah. But I'll tell you what has changed my mind. And I'm, mostly vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian most of my life. I'm not exclusively vegetarian now. I don't eat meat, but I have a little, fish or sometimes other things. But it's very little, very rare. But I've spent time with very sacred spiritual teachers who do, in their traditions, eat a little meat. And what I learned from those traditions is something we touched on earlier. They don't ever take more than they need. They do it in a sacred way. And I think, so whether it's vegetarianism or something else, people have sometimes a lot of hang-ups about the way we have to do things. So maybe sometimes people say, that they're not a vegetarian, they're not spiritual, or they're not this or that. In my own experience, that's not necessarily true. Now, I have friends that are vegan only. I've been vegan myself at different times. I think it's beautiful. I think we should all do it in the way that feels right. Could the whole world be vegetarian? Probably not. Should the whole world be vegetarian? Probably not.
Yeah.
Like regenerative farming, I have trouble saying that word, shows a very different model for abundance that includes just the right relationship with the earth and land and But I want to be clear, just so people don't get the wrong idea. The modern factory farming and that is horrifying. So I don't ever try to support that in any way. I've just, for my own health at different moments have been advised by certain people to, add a little fish or this and that. So I've listened and it, works. Yeah. But naturally I like, to be more vegetarian. But I no longer have the judgment about it, is what I want to say.
I love that.
Yeah.
What is something that you didn't think you could do and you did?
Make a living teaching yoga. Well, that's one thing. Make an album. Never really thought about doing it. And I thought, so it seems so far away. So now I'm on the second one and it seems the same. Like, oh my God, am I ever going to make another one?
So how do you walk yourself through that?
To make it happen?
Yeah. Something that seems like impossible to do.
Yeah. Just start doing it. Like in some way or form that is accessible. So music, for instance, for me, it's like just writing songs, playing music every day, singing, bringing that energy into life, and then feeling it. Or like for me, it has its own pull, and it's going to take you somewhere.
Yeah.
And keep focus. Yeah, it's like finding a way to do what you love, do your art. Do what you're passionate about, even if it's the extra 10 minutes you have every day or you make time. So, yeah.
And come back to why you're doing it, right? As we said before.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
Yes.
What gives you hope?
The good nature of people, the goodness in the hearts of the people. I see, I've been doing this for a lot of years and just seeing how people can naturally get over their stuff, and just start relating with each other in a beautiful way, a kind way, and giving and the healing of conflicts. And I think, like what I said earlier, I think most people on this planet are just good people. They want peace. They want a healthy, sustainable planet that works for everyone. They don't want to start again on Mars.
Yes.
And take the same game over there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's really that.
Yeah. Beautiful. And last question, what are you curious about right now?
Wow, that's a good one. Life. I just like I have Gemini rising. I'm like pretty much naturally curious about everything. Like, and that's a handicap too, because I feel like I've had so many interests in life, but I love astrology. I'm always learning about astrology and stars. I'm curious. I'm curious about actually co-creating a community. I hadn't really thought about it that way, and just being part of a community of land and kind of bringing something into vision, a place. Yeah, thank you for that. It just kind of helped me crystallize something, and then really working with the land and creating a healing space. Much like what y'all have done here at Yandara. It's very inspiring, actually, and the simplicity and the beauty here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope to see it one day.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what Spirit has in store.
Yeah, exactly. Where the river goes.
That's right, where the river flows to the sea.
Yep. Beautiful. So is there anything else that is important for you to share?
I think you asked me to do a song, so I'll just do it through that. Yeah, I have a little song I wrote recently, so I'll do a little bit of that.
Beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so excited. Before that, I'll just say, make sure to check out Saul's album, 10,000 Suns Music for Healing, Peace, and Awakening. And where can people stay in touch with you?
Well, I have a little tiny website. It's kind of being redone, but sauldavidraye.com. And if they want to listen to the music, you can hear it on Spotify or a lot of places. And I want to just mention one song really quickly. There's this song, because it's on a different page. It's just the way the distribution happened. But it's called the Nepal Song. And it's a song of my friend Jim Beckwith and I wrote about the earthquake in Nepal. So we donated the proceeds from that to groups working with the Nepalese people. And it's just about how through a great tragedy, and this is really about the spirit of the Nepali and Tibetan people. We went to Nepal to record the song, but it's about how that loving spirit of connection and people helping each other, and even through that tragedy, people chanting Om Mani Padme Hung, and that's the chorus of the song. Ooh, Om Mani Padme Hung. But it's just all about, the English words are about the kind of devastation that we go through this process, but then the healing that comes out of it. So it's called Nepal Song, May All Beings Be Free.
Beautiful. And you can come to Saul's next retreat here in December.
December
Yeah.
16th to 21st, winter solstice. We're going to celebrate here in Yandara.
Beautiful. Great. So it will be my honor to have you do the song. And thank
you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Are we ready? Down on my knees, praying for peace. Down on my knees, praying for love. Down on my knees, right next to you, praying for this world and love to shine through. It's a beautiful world we're living in. Open up your hearts and let love in. Something's coming, can you feel it? The world is turning, the people all want peace. Love is here now, if you just believe, 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 believe. Hey. Down on my knees, praying for peace. Down on my knees, praying for love. Down on my knees, right next to you, prayers for this world, love to shine through. Open up your heart and let love in. It's a beautiful world we're living in. Open up your mind and let love in. It's a beautiful world, so let's begin.
Now, after this time to nurture your mind and your spirit, we invite you to take a moment to consider others. A kind wish might come to mind. Know that what we learn becomes more valuable when we apply it and share it with others. So share this episode on Instagram stories, tag Yandara and I, or share with a loved one so that more people can benefit from it. Our hope is that the search will lead you home to who you already are, to what was always there. We'll be back next week with more inspiration, honest conversation, and insight into the energetic world around us. Thank you for listening and watching.